At my sister's wedding, the groom's family sneered, "People like her should know their place," bragging about their power in a corporation. They didn't know I owned it. Before the night ended, someone would lose more than pride. He said my name should be embarrassing to say out loud. He said this in a ballroom I could have bought. With champagne that my company's hospitality account had, I would shortly learn already paid for, in front of 200 people, including my sister, who was wearing white lace and the specific expression of a woman who has just understood that the family she married into is something she is going to have to reckon with for the rest of her life. I had a black envelope in my bag. I had been carrying it since that morning, slipped in beside my phone, the kind of thing you bring to a situation the way you bring an umbrella, not because you intend to use it, but because you understood when you left the house that the weather might change. Richard Dalton looked at me from across the cocktail table and smiled the smile of a man who has spent his entire career confusing proximity to power with the possession of it. "If your sister is so accomplished," he said to the room, to the 30 or 40 people in earshot who had been listening to him perform for the last 40 minutes, "maybe she should tell us what she actually does, unless it's too embarrassing to say out loud." The room went quiet. I reached into my bag. "I want to tell you what happened in the 7 seconds that followed, because the details matter. The specific, sequential collapse of a man who has just discovered that the person he spent 4 hours condescending to was the one thing he could not survive being wrong about." I set the black envelope on the cocktail table in front of him. He looked down. The Mercer Global crest, embossed in gold, caught the light from the chandelier. He read the title line, 3 words. And the color left his face in stages, the way color leaves a room when the light goes, not all at once, but section by section, until there was nothing warm left in it at all. That was the moment, but it wasn't the beginning. "My name is Claire Bennett. I am 41 years old. I wore a simple navy dress to my sister Emily's wedding. No statement jewelry, low heels, nothing that announced itself. I have been to enough events to understand that the way you dress communicates a theory of the room, and my theory of this room was, this is Emily's day, and I am here as her sister, and everything else is secondary. This was intentional. This was also, I will acknowledge in retrospect, a gift I gave to Richard Dalton, because the navy dress and the low heels and the absence of announcement gave him a canvas on which to project exactly what he needed me to be. He needed me to be manageable. He needed me to be the kind of person who could be put in her place. I let him believe I was. Mercer Global Holdings is a multinational company with 40,000 employees across 11 countries and a 42nd floor corner office that has my name on the door and has had my name on the door for 6 years. I have been with the company for 19 years. I joined at 22 as a junior analyst. I was made partner at 31. I was appointed CEO at 35 after the previous CEO retired, and the board conducted a 9-month search that ended, to some people's surprise, with the person who had already been running the company's most profitable divisions for 4 years. My name is on the founding charter, not because I founded the company. Mercer was founded 60 years ago by a man named George Mercer, who is now 92 and lives in Arizona, and calls me on my birthday every year to tell me I'm doing it right. My name is on the founding charter because 3 years into my tenure, the board voted to add the sitting CEO to the charter as an acknowledgement of institutional continuity. It was a symbolic gesture. It is also a document that exists and has my name on it. Richard Dalton was a regional vice president in our Mid-Atlantic subsidiary. He had been in that role for 7 years, a comfortable position, a good salary, the kind of corporate proximity that, if you are the kind of man Richard is, you can deploy in social settings to create an impression of significance that the numbers don't quite support. Grant, his son, had been placed in a mid-level strategy role in the same subsidiary 8 months ago through a connection, a college friend of Richard's who sat on a divisional advisory committee and had made a call. This is not illegal. It is also not a talent-based hiring decision. Grant had been in the role for 8 months and had, according to the quarterly performance review I had read the previous week for reasons that will become clear, produced work that his direct supervisor had diplomatically described as developing. Grant was 29. He had been practicing a particular smile for, I estimated, his entire adult life. These were the people who decided, within 20 minutes of meeting me, that I should know my place. Emily had called me 3 weeks before the wedding, not with alarm. Emily does not alarm easily, which is a quality I have always admired in her and which, in the context of her engagement to Grant Dalton, had occasionally made me wish she alarmed a little more readily. She called with the slightly careful tone she uses when she has something to tell me that she suspects I will have a reaction to. "His parents want to do a dinner," she said, "before the wedding, to meet the family." "Okay," I said. "Claire, that tone. His father he's a particular kind of person. I want you to know that going in." "What kind of person?" A pause. "The kind that needs to be the most important person in the room." I understood her. "Emily," I said, "I'm coming to your wedding as your sister. That's it. Whatever he needs to be, he can be it. You're going to want to say something," she said. "I know," I said. "I won't." I meant it when I said it. The pre-wedding dinner was on a Friday evening at a restaurant Grant's parents had selected, a place that was expensive in the way that requires advance reservation and communicates a message about who is setting the terms. There were 12 of us at the table: Emily and Grant, Richard and Vanessa Dalton, Richard's brother and sister-in-law, our parents, 2 friends of the couple, and me. Richard shook my hand without warmth when we arrived. "Emily tells us you work in business," he said. The slight emphasis on work, the slight upward inflection on business, as though the word required verification. "I do," I said. He chuckled. The specific chuckle typical of a man who has decided something is charming about you when what he means is that it is small. Our family has deep roots in Mercer Global Holdings, he said. Executive level, real influence, the kind of access that most people in business spend careers trying to get. He was addressing the table now, as much as me. Not everyone understands what that world actually looks like from the inside. The table listened, the way tables listen when someone has established dominance over a social situation, with the slight deference of people who have accepted for the duration that this is his room. Vanessa looked at my dress, the navy one, the low heels. People like you should know your place at events like this, she said, pleasantly, with the specific pleasantness of someone who has learned to deliver cruelty in a tone that makes it difficult to respond to directly. Different backgrounds make these gatherings uncomfortable for everyone. Emily went white. My mother made a sound. I kept my face completely still. I'm sure they do, I said. That was my first mistake. They decided the stillness was smallness. The composure was deference. The silence was the silence of someone who had been correctly placed. I let them decide that. And then I went back to my hotel and called my chief of staff. My chief of staff is a woman named Diane Park. She has been with me for 4 years and is the most efficient person I have ever worked with, which is saying something because I work with 40,000 people. I called her at 10:47 p.m. I need a pull on Richard Dalton, I said. Mid-Atlantic subsidiary, regional VP, full profile, performance, access log, anything flagged in the last 6 months, and a vendor relationship audit for the wedding venue and hotel block. Grant Dalton, personal bookings. Diane did not ask questions. She said, by morning. She delivered at 7:14 a.m. I read it over coffee in my hotel room. Richard's performance reviews. Adequate, consistently adequate, the reviews of a man who does not underperform badly enough to be removed, but does not distinguish himself in any direction. Flagged once, 2 years ago, for representing his authority level inaccurately in a vendor negotiation. A warning, documented, closed without further action, but the recent activity. 3 weeks ago, Richard had been removed from the Executive Council, a voluntary advisory body, not a formal board, but one that carried the Mercer name in its communications, and whose members used its affiliation in professional correspondence. He had been removed for a specific reason, misrepresenting his council authority to 2 outside vendors in written communications, implying board-level approval for decisions that had not been approved by anyone above his own level. He had been notified. He had signed the acknowledgement letter. He had continued using the credentials. I read that line twice. Then I read the vendor audit. The wedding hotel block, 48 rooms for 3 nights, had been booked through a corporate hospitality account that Richard still had access to because his access revocation had not yet been fully processed after the council removal. The booking had been made 6 weeks ago. The corporate rate charged to a Mercer hospitality code was $34,000 below what the market rate would have been for the same block. He had used my company's hospitality account to subsidize his son's wedding hotel block. He had used my name, Mercer's name, to get my sister's wedding guests a discount on their rooms, without authorization, without knowledge, on credentials that had been revoked. I set down my coffee cup. I called Diane back. The vendor audit, I said. The hotel bookings. Is that what it looks like? Yes, she said. Get legal on the phone at 9, I said. And have Marcus pull together a credential termination package, everything, effective tonight. Tonight specifically, Diane said. He's going to be at the wedding, I said. A pause. Understood, she said. I'll have the package ready by noon. I went to get dressed. The navy dress again. The low heels. I put the board meeting invitation, the one from 2 weeks prior, embossed gold lettering on black stock, the kind the board office produces for formal events, into my bag. I had almost not brought it. I had not been planning to use it. I had been planning to let the day be Emily's day. Then I remembered people like you should know your place, and I put it in my bag. The ceremony was beautiful. I want to say that, because it is true, and because Emily deserved it, and because there are 30 minutes I protected that day by making myself be present in them, rather than in everything else. Emily walked down the aisle in white lace, and she was glowing in the specific way of someone who is happy and knows they are and is letting themselves know it. Grant stood at the altar with the practiced smile, and I watched him watch her walk toward him, and the smile became something more real for a moment, the involuntary drop of performance that happens when you see something you actually feel, and I thought, he is not his father. I held that. I sat in the 4th row, and I held that for the 30 minutes the ceremony lasted. Then the reception began. Richard started near the bar. He had the room organized around him within 20 minutes. The specific social gravity of a man who enters a party with a prepared self-concept and the confidence to perform it at volume. Champagne, the carrying voice, the Mercer name, deployed every few minutes, a tocsin he rang to mark his position. The board trusts my judgment specifically, he said, to a group of 5 that included Emily's colleagues and 2 of Grant's friends. 40 years of relationship building doesn't happen overnight. Grant will be in senior leadership before he's 40. I'm personally overseeing that development. Vanessa beside him. Some people are born into opportunity. Others are simply fortunate to be invited into rooms they couldn't access otherwise. Several heads turned toward me. I was standing 12 feet away with a glass of water. My phone buzzed. Diane, package delivered to your email. Marcus confirms termination effective 11:59 p.m. tonight. Legal has the credential misuse documentation. Hotel vendor has been notified of unauthorized booking. I opened the email, read the vendor summary, read the credential report, the last line of the hotel section. Unauthorized booking generated $34,000 in corporate rate accommodation benefits. benefit. Applied to Dalton Bennett wedding guest block without authorization. Dalton Bennett. My sister's name was on that booking. He had put my sister's name on a booking he made with stolen credentials. I looked up. Richard was looking directly at me. He raised his champagne glass slightly, the way you raise a glass at someone you've decided is beneath the effort of a real toast. If your sister is so accomplished, he said, to the room, to everyone in earshot, to the 200 people who had gathered to celebrate the beginning of something, maybe she should tell us what she actually does, unless it's too embarrassing to say out loud. The room went quiet. I set down my water. I reached into my bag. I placed the envelope on the cocktail table in front of him. Black stock, gold embossed crest. My name, printed cleanly beneath it in the font the board office uses for formal correspondence. Claire Bennett, Chief Executive Officer, Mercer Global Holdings. I have thought about this moment many times since, trying to identify the exact sequence of his understanding. The crest first, recognizing it because he has used it on his own correspondence, because it is the symbol he has been deploying for years as a proxy for significance. Then the title line, then the name he had been saying all evening, the name on the building. His name was on the building. His face went through several configurations in approximately 4 seconds. Vanessa made a sound, not words, a sound, the specific involuntary vocalization of someone whose operating assumptions have just been structurally compromised. Grant picked up the envelope. Dad, he said quietly, what is this? Richard opened his mouth. Nothing. You were removed from the executive council 3 weeks ago, I said. My voice was even. It is always even when I am serious. Something I learned early in my career, that the quieter you get, the more carefully people listen. The credential misuse has been documented by the security team. Legal has the full package, and the hotel vendor has been notified today of the unauthorized booking made on a corporate hospitality account that you no longer had authorization to use. The room was absolutely still. The hotel block, I continued, because he needed to hear it said in front of these people. 48 rooms, 3 nights, booked 6 weeks ago on Mercer's corporate account at a $34,000 discount below market rate, under my company's name, after your council membership had been revoked. Emily turned to Grant. He used Claire's company to pay for the wedding? Her voice had the particular quality of someone recalculating something they thought they understood. He used her company. Grant was looking at his father with the expression of someone meeting a stranger in a familiar face. Richard found his voice. It was a discount arrangement. It was unauthorized use of corporate credentials after formal revocation, I said. That's in the documentation. I'm not characterizing it. That's the legal team's characterization. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. Richard, tell them, Vanessa, I said, and she stopped. Not because I raised my voice, because I didn't. Your husband told an entire table last night that he has the complete trust of Mercer's board. He told this room tonight that he has direct influence over senior leadership decisions. He has been using the Mercer name in outside negotiations to imply authority he has not held for 3 weeks. I looked at her steadily. I'd like to understand what part of that is a misunderstanding. She had nothing. Richard had nothing. My phone was ringing in my bag. Marcus, probably, with the final termination confirmation. I silenced it without looking. Your access is permanently terminated as of tonight, I said to Richard. The credential files have been transferred to our compliance team. What happens next is in legal's hands, not mine. I picked up the black envelope from the cocktail table. I looked at my sister. Emily was looking back at me with the specific expression of a woman who has understood all at once several things she had been understanding separately, that I had been carrying this all day, that I had waited until the ceremony was over, that the navy dress and the low heels had been a choice. You knew, she said. Not everything, I said. The rest I found out this morning. Why didn't you? Because you had 30 minutes, I said. You deserved them clean. She looked at me for a moment. Then, very quietly, she said, thank you. The rest of the evening was what it was. Richard and Vanessa left within 20 minutes. They left with the specific efficiency of people who understand that remaining in a room they have lost is not a survivable experience. Grant stayed. He stayed because Emily was there, and because he had, apparently, understood something in the previous 20 minutes about the difference between the version of his family he had been performing for his entire life and the version that had just revealed itself under the chandelier. He pulled me aside near the end of the night, while Emily was dancing with her friends. I didn't know about the hotel booking, he said. I know, I said, because I did. The booking had been made from Richard's personal device, from his personal account access. Grant's name had been used administratively, as the guest of honor, not as an actor. I knew Grant stopped, looked at his hands. I knew he embellished things. I didn't know how much. People rarely know how much, I said, until someone else does the accounting. He looked up. Is Emily going to be okay with all of this? I looked at my sister, dancing, her dress moving, laughing at something her friend said with the free laugh of a person who is in the middle of her best day. Ask her, I said. Not me. He nodded. He walked toward her. I watched him go, and I thought about his face during the ceremony, the moment the practiced smile became real, and I thought, he is not his father. I held that. The legal outcome took 4 months. Richard was presented with a civil demand from Mercer's legal team covering the unauthorized hotel booking and the credential misuse, the $34,000 equivalent in corporate rate benefit, plus the legal costs of documentation and compliance review. He settled without litigation, which his attorney probably recommended when he saw the size of the evidence file. His employment with the the company had technically continued through the subsidiary. Regional VP roles are not automatically terminated by executive council removal. After the credential investigation was complete and the civil matter settled, his contract was allowed to expire at its natural end date rather than renewed. He did not have a new role to go to. Grant resigned from his mid-level strategy position 2 months after the wedding. He told Emily he didn't want to be in a place where every conversation about his career involved his father's shadow. He is now working for a smaller firm in a role he got on his own application, with his own resume. His quarterly reviews, according to someone who knows his supervisor, are described as promising. Emily and I had dinner the month after the wedding, the real kind, just the two of us, at a place we have been going since we were in our 20s, where the owner knows our usual order. You waited, she said. You waited through the whole ceremony. It was your 30 minutes, I said. She looked at me across the table. Claire, she said, you've been protecting me my whole life. That's what sisters do, I said. Not like that, she said. I didn't know how to answer that, so I didn't. We ate dinner. She told me Grant had been seeing a therapist, his own choice, his own initiative, to work through the specific experience of discovering that the foundation your self-concept was built on is different from what you were told. How is he doing? I said. Better, she said. Honestly, he's becoming someone I think he always wanted to be. She said it the way you say something about a person you have decided to believe in. Good, I said. I meant it. Vanessa sent a note. Not an apology. I want to be accurate about what it was. It was a note of the type that people write when they understand that an apology is owed, but are not yet able to produce one that is honest, so they produce something adjacent. Regarding the events of the evening, I hope that in time we might find a way forward as families. Some things were said that could have been said differently. I read it twice. I did not respond. Some doors stay closed until the person on the other side decides they understand why the door is closed. That decision is not mine to make for her. The navy dress is in my closet. I keep it there not as a trophy. I want to be careful about that, but as a reminder of something I believe and have believed since early in my career, which is that the most powerful thing in a room is almost never the loudest thing. Power that needs to announce itself is not comfortable in its own skin. Power that has nothing to prove can sit quietly in a navy dress and low heels and wait. Richard Dalton spent 40 years building a performance of significance. He walked into a ballroom where the performance had already been superseded by the reality. He just didn't know it. That's the thing about assumptions. They are very expensive, especially when the person you are making them about owns the building. My sister called me last week. She said, Grant wants to take me to Italy for our first anniversary. She said it the way you say something you can't believe is real. I said, go. She said, come with us. I said, it's your anniversary. She said, you're my sister. I said, let me check my calendar. I already knew I was going. Some things you don't need to deliberate. You just say yes.